Welcome to Elk Products M1 webinar. Today's webinar, we're going to be going over lots of rules for the panel. My name is Jonathan Jennings, the Business Development and Training Manager. On the phone with us today and doing a lot of the rules, be helping us out is going to be Brad Weeks, Head of Technical Support.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us for today's webinar.
Let's jump right into ElkRP, and as you can see here, the programming software is absolutely free. You're able to download that off our website at elkproducts.com. I do require a login and password to be able to get it, so please feel free to fill out the information, and we'll be getting you back with a password and a login to our website as soon as possible. As you can see here, we've got an account open for you, and we've named this account the Rule Writing Webinar. We have some great notes down here, the local IP address, the DIME DNS that we're actually using for this particular account. And it's okay to call the customer between 8 to 8 Monday through Friday. These are some really important information. I really like these notes and how you can actually better access those. We're going to click over here on the left-hand side to users. You can see here we have a lot of different users. They kind of jump from number 10 all the way up to number 50 because you don't have to go in exact order if you don't want to. If there's somebody special or you're adding somebody and you want to keep them separate, that's a good example of how to do that. But we're going to actually write some rules based on some of these users to see exactly what you actually want to do. So there's like a next door neighbor, now maybe a maintenance guy we need to send a notification to. You can see we have some different areas. Again, the M1 can do up to 8 different areas or 8 partitions. Currently, this particular account has 5 areas with it. The panel can handle up to 16 keypads. We actually have 6 keypads, and they are programmed slightly different than each other, and that's one of the flexibilities of the M1. You can see here we have lots of different zone inputs. We will be writing some rules based on some zones. So we actually have our zones already programmed to be able to accomplish this. Cutoff timers is how long the siren is actually going to run. The burglar is going to run for 600 seconds, which is 10 minutes. The fire duration, this confuses a lot of people. That's 535 is the number. For the M1, that's actually infinity. It's going to continue to run until you actually acknowledge the fire alarm itself. There's a lot of information discussed in globals. Currently, we have this set up for telephone control, local and remote. Also how the time is going to be displayed on the keypads in Fahrenheit and Celsius. We jump over to G29 through 42. We actually have this thing set up to ring until auto answer is set up a lot longer than, let's say, an answering machine or a voicemail. Depending on your phone system, ring, hang up, and answer is actually checked. So what that allows us to do is be able to call in the panel on a POTS line, let the phone ring several times, hang up, immediately call back. The panel's going to answer. We can actually get into the panel with a proper PIN number and then have full access to the account as if we were standing in front of a keypad. With telephones, the M1 panel's able to dial up to 8 different telephone numbers, and currently right now we've got several different numbers, including a central station number that we'd actually be reporting to. Communicator is all about the communications to the central station itself. The reporting codes is what the RC actually stands for. Currently right now we're only going to report the duress code because you can see here it's a 01. Anything other than a 00 means it will report, whether you're reporting a contact ID or SIA. It goes ahead and fills in that information for you. So there's no reason to be looking up stuff in manuals to be able to report properly to the central station. That's going to bring us right down into Automation tab, and that's the whole reason why you joined us today, is to be able to jump in here and make the M1 do really unique things for the end user themselves.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. We appreciate that. And for the most part, the information above automation we've gone over in previous webinars. It's just a quick overview of some of those features in the RP software. Today we're going to get into automation, and that's where we really set the M1 apart from other systems on the market. And M1's very good in security, It's also that cross-platform or that bridge over into your automation so that you can automate lights, thermostats, hot water heaters, control blinds, just anything that you can think of to help increase life enhancement or energy management for your home. So the first thing we have when we click under automation is task. Now when we click on task, we have 32 different tasks that we can actually assign a name to. So under this menu here, this is just giving the task a name. And in this case, I have a cooling mode, a heating mode, welcome home, and a school day mode. The show option on this field allows this name to show up either under the Elk keypad under menu number 1, or in M1 to go under task, or under the third-party smartphone apps that support the task feature. You can assign a voice description to your task. You click under voice description and you can assign a 6-word phrase to each task. And if you call into the system over the phone line and you access the task menu, you can hear the voice description, then press pound to actually activate the task. So here we can assign 32 names to 32 different tasks. Under lighting, we are very fortunate that we do integrate with a number of different lighting controls and manufacturers and technologies. At the bottom here is just a list of a few. We visit our website at elkproducts.com, and under partner manufacturers you can see the full list of supported integrated partner manufacturers for lighting, thermostats, touchscreens, and so forth. For the most part, the first 192 devices listed will be your individual devices, whether it be a lamp module or an appliance module. From 193 to 256, those are typically scenes or links, but that is dependent on the manufacturer or of the lighting technology on how they define that. So for the most part, we can support up to 256 individual devices, whether that be 192 devices and 64 scenes or 256 devices, depending on the manufacturer. Here I've assigned a name to the device. The format, for the most part, will always be serial port expander. Your other options would be standard, extended, preset, dim, and compose. This is pretty much X10 lighting, which is still available in some parts, but for the most part we'll be using serial port expander. The type will be either on-off, dimmer, appliance, or other. The OPT box is only necessary if you're using Insteon or ISY lighting. So unless you're using Insteon or ISY, the OPT option will be unchecked. Once again, we have a show box that allows the name to show up under the Elk keypad menu 1, M1 to go under the lighting page, as well as the third-party apps that support lighting. Voice description, we can assign a 6-word phrase to each light, and that too can be listened to when you connect to the system through a phone line. A quick feature here under lighting is the ability to right-click on lighting and import lighting data. As you can see here under the exported file format, these are the current formats that you can import the data from Universal Devices or the Upstart software, CBus, as well as Lutron Radio Raw. You can configure their lighting network using their interface, their software, and then import that information into ElkRP so that you don't have to recreate this information here in the white area. Outputs, the M1 has 205 outputs. The first 2 are fixed, they're hard-coded. This is your interior speaker, that's output 1. Output 2 can either be configured as a voltage output or as the built-in siren driver for the M1. This is typically used for exterior use. Output 3 is your Form C relay on board. 4, 5, and 6 are reserved at this time. Your next output available is from J16 off of the main board. That's output 7, all the way up to 208. Now what I've done here is the first 64 outputs can actually be named. So you can assign a name, once again the show box, and the voice description if you would like to assign a voice phrase to each output. The reason we only do the first 64 is originally we thought that would be more than plenty when assigning outputs to most residential applications. Having 64 relays and the name associated would be fine. After that, when you're using the rules, the output is simply output 65 through output 208. Under the Sunrise Sunset tab here, first thing we'd want to do, this is very important, is to click a city near you, and here we have Hickory, North Carolina already selected. So I'm going to use these settings, confirm that I'm in the correct time zone. I'm going to click calculate. You can also manually enter your latitude and longitude if you like. What RP is going to do after we click calculate is set up the expected sunrise and sunset settings for your area. As you can see, if we scroll down to September, you can see when approximately for our area. Now this is already compensated for daylight savings time, so in our area for the 25th, sunrise was at 7:16, sunset was at approximately 7:18. The voice tab we've gone over before. We'll kind of skip over that. The one that you can manipulate any one of these that you would like. You can double click on this to change the message. The one that I would encourage you not to change is the telephone control. These are hard-coded based upon the button presses of the telephone, so I wouldn't recommend really changing any of these voice descriptions here. Under custom settings is a very unique feature within the M1 system. You have 20 custom settings, and what a custom setting is, we can actually assign a time of day, a timer value, or a number to a variable within the rules. And that variable can be changed through the keypad. That's the only way to manipulate a rule through the keypad is by the custom settings. So for instance, we're going to talk about sprinkler control later on, and I have a sprinkler on time, which is a time of day, and currently it's set for 5 a.m. I have my sprinkler run time, which is a timer value for 20 minutes. Now later on, after you've configured the system, you've sent your rules down, the homeowners decides later on that 5 a.m. is not a good time for the sprinklers to come on. He would like it to come on at 6 a.m. The homeowner could go to the keypad, press the ELK key, it should display number 1 view control, and then press the number 7 key for custom settings, and then he can manipulate the timer value or the time of day to meet the needs of the application. So this is custom settings, and we have up to 20 of those. Under counters, you can have up to 64 counters within the ELK programming software. I've set up a few here for some simple examples, like we're going to toggle a light, a call sequence, a random look, a garage door open, an HVAC on, and change the HVAC filters. This just assigns a name to the counter. Later on we'll use the rules so that we can add, subtract, set them to different values and so forth. So we'll get into that when we get into the rules. Under thermostats, right now we can support up to 16 thermostats, and once again, if you visit our website at elkproducts.com, under partner manufacturers you can see the current thermostat manufacturers and technology supported. The system will support up to 16 thermostats, and this field here simply gives a name to the thermostat. Under text, This is a nice feature in that you can create custom text messages that you can have displayed across an M1 keypad. For instance, happy birthday Jane, trash day. If we're using an M1 ZTS, a zone temperature sensor, I can display the outside temperature. You can also create custom Ascii strings. So if there's a piece of equipment that we currently don't integrate with directly, but they do publish their RS-232 protocol, if you know what Ascii strings this piece of equipment is expecting to see to do different operations, we can recreate those strings here in ElkRP and then send those strings out our M1XSP, our serial port expander, to the piece of equipment that has an RS-232 port on it. I've set up one here that's pool pump on, 1, 2, 3, 4 with a carriage return and line feed, so that we can write the rule that whenever an event takes place and we want to turn the pool pump on, we can send that Ascii string to their equipment. Now then, once we've gotten to this point, we are now at the point where we're going to talk about the actual rules themselves. So when we click Rules, this is our rules page, and by definition, if we look here at the bottom, a rule consists of a single whenever statement followed by a then statement. That's one rule. You can have additional and statements, which are conditioning statements. You don't have to have them, they're optional. And you can have additional then statements within a rule. So if you have and statements within the rule, each and statement must be true before it'll fall down to the next line in the rule. And then you can have your then statements. So a whenever is a trigger, it's an event, and are conditionings, and then your then is the final result that you want to happen once the rule is executed. If we click New, we get a new rule box. We get a comments field here that you can type in information to help you remember your rule, how it's supposed to operate, or give you a brief overview or something. It's just a area there where you can help the flow with things to help you remember how your rules were created and why. The comments portion of the rules are only stored in RP. They're not actually stored in the control themselves. So if you connect to a panel with a Virgin account and you receive everything out of the panel, you will not get the rule comments. But then you can always export your account from RP and import that into another computer, and that way you can have all of your comments. So if we see here, we have our first thing is our whenever, and this is our trigger. This is our input. What do we want to happen? We have a number of different events to take place. We can base it upon time of occurrence, whether the time of day equals, at sunrise, at sunset. This is based upon our sunrise, sunset settings we calculated earlier. We can have something happen every hour equals, every minute equals, every X hours or X minutes, or even every second. This is a time occurrence. We can have things happen based upon zones changing state, whether a zone becomes secure or not secure, whether an output turns on or turns off, the function keys or the F keys of the keypad themselves. We can write rules that are keyed upon those. So you don't have to have a function key do the normal fire, police, medical. You can assign it to do other things, and this is customizable by keypad. The F button press for your wireless key fobs. A light changing state. The automation task, which we talked about earlier. We gave a task a name. Here is where we'll actually assign the task to do something. The security aspects of the system, whether it's disarmed, it's armed, it's burglar status, if it's been an alarm, access, the last person to use the keypad. You can, based upon the chime changing state from the keypad, whether a zone has become bypassed or unbypassed. Your miscellaneous system troubles, your AC fail, your low battery, the restorals of those, as well as some other features like when the telephone goes off hook. Because the M1 is constantly monitoring the telephone. It's always there, so it knows when the telephone is ringing, it knows when the telephone goes off hook. Those Ascii strings, whether a counter changes, and when thermostat settings change at the thermostat itself. So these are your whenever statements. We have approximately 110 of those within this window here. The and, like I said, is conditioning. You don't have to have them, but you can incorporate those in, because there may be sometimes you want rules to activate only at night versus during the day, or if it's a certain time of the day, whether it's based upon the time of day, whether it's sunset, sunrise, in between days, in between months, whether it's a specific day of the week, day of the month, month of the year, or even a specific year, based upon its light or dark outside. Once again, the latitude and longitude settings. Is an input open or closed? Is an output on or off? Who was the last person to access the system? Whether a light is on an on or off state. The security system aspects, whether it's armed, disarmed, or in an alarm. Miscellaneous troubles. The counter values. A temperature reading from our zone temperature sensor or from our M1KP1 keypad, the only keypad that has a built-in temperature sensor. The thermostat settings, these are conditioning and statements. We have approximately 96 of those. You can have multiple ands. The then is the final result, what you want to happen, so we can activate that task. We can control the security aspects, arming and disarming. Can control outputs, control lighting, have the M1 speak. We can send that custom text message out the serial port expander. We can send the custom text message to the keypad. You can enable and disable the chime. You can start the keypad beeping. You can actually chirp the outside siren. So if you have something connected to output 2, and you want a verification that the system is armed or disarmed, you can chirp the outside siren. You can set and change that counter. You can dial a telephone as long as it's been set up for a format 5 voice dial. You can send email messages. You can control your thermostat. You can enable and disable users from rules. You can enable and disable the voice from rules, bypass and unbypass a zone, perform the smoke power reset, as well as control audio system. We do integrate with 3 audio sources. Once again, on our website under partner manufacturers, you can get more information on the supported equipment. So these are your then statements. These are your events to take place. We have approximately 28 of those within the rule engine. So now that we've gone over the basics, now's the time to let your imagination start running wild, so you can create that life enhancement. You can create that energy management. You can set the M1 system up to do things for you. So let's say, for instance, let's going to take a look at rule number 1.
Hey, Brad,
Yes.
right before you get into that,
Sure.
do you mind answering about having an or statement? I've already got a couple questions on that.
Okay. Or statements, the software doesn't incorporate an or, and if you have that or situation, it would require 2 rules to take care of both scenarios.
Thank you.
All right. Let's take a look at rule number 1. So I click Edit, and bear with me one second. Okay, click Edit. And I've created a comment here that rules 1 through 3 use the F4 to toggle a device on and off using the value of a counter. So whenever the F4 key on any keypad activates, it then toggles counter 1, which I gave a name, toggle front light, between 0 and 1. Think of this counter as a flag. It's either going to be 0 or it's going to be 1. And if we look in our second rule here, we can see that whenever it changes to 0, whenever that counter 1 changes to 0, I then turn the front porch light off. Real simple. the third rule, whenever the counter changes to 1, I then turn the front porch light on. From that single F4 key on that keypad, and it can be set up for a specific keypad or all keypads, that whenever that F4 key is pressed, it just simply toggles that counter between 0 and 1. When the counter equals 0, turn the light off. When the counter equals 1, turn the light on. Now in rules 4 and 5, because we're using a light, that light may turn on from an external source. Somebody may walk up to the light and turn the light on there at the rocker switch. Well, in that case, the counter wouldn't get automatically updated. So what I've done is I've created a rule that whenever the front porch light is turned off by some external device, meaning the rocker switch itself or maybe another automation software, then set the counter equal to 0. And when the porch light is turned on by an external device, set the counter equal to 1. This way, the counter is in the F4 key will always be up to date with the light. Now that's provided that the light actually broadcasts its status change to other devices. Some systems support broadcasting, some don't. So it's important to check with the manufacturer to make sure that they do support broadcasting when the light changes state at the device itself. So in this case, we're assuming that this is true, that the device does broadcast. And now that when the rocker switch is pressed, the counter is going to be updated. So if you turn it on at the rocker switch and then walk over to the F4 key to turn it off, they'll be in sync with each other. So that's one example of a counter. And in this case, we're using the counter as a flag, and we're setting it between 0 and 1 and keying upon whether it is 0 or it's equal to 1. In rule number 6, I'm using a custom setting to turn on the sprinkler. Remember, custom setting is a value that can actually be changed through the keypad without the RP software. So in my example here, I have whenever the time is sprinkler on time, custom setting number 1, which earlier we set to 5 a.m. I have a conditioning and statement that the days of the week are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I have another and statement that says that the rain sensor is secure. So if you have a rain gauge that has some sort of input output to it that allows it to, if there's X amount of rain, closes a contact or opens a contact, then we can use that to determine that there's been enough rain in the area. You do not need to turn your sprinklers on. So whenever the time is 5 a.m., and the days of the week are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and the rain sensor is secure, meaning there's not been significant enough rain, let's turn sprinkler zone 1, which is output 17, sprinkler zone 2, output 18, and sprinkler zone 3, output 19, on for that custom setting number 2 in this case, to 20 minutes. So in this rule is finished, this is done, it's all set up, you've programmed the system, and now the M1's doing its thing. It's checking for 5 a.m. and then it's going to check for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Then it's going to check to make sure that the rain gauge is not full, and it's going to turn those outputs on for 20 minutes. At some point, the homeowner may say, like I said, 5 a.m. is not working. Through the keypad, he can adjust that to 6 a.m. He may decide that 20 minutes isn't long enough or it's too long, so he can adjust custom setting 2 to a longer or shorter value. So this rule's done. We'll take a look at a similar rule, and that's rule number 7 here. And in this case, it's a fixed time. No custom setting, so whenever the time is 5 a.m., days of the week, once again, are Monday through Wednesday, and that rain sensor is secure. This time I've turned only a single output on. That's output 17 for 10 minutes. Now, in the above scenario, I turned all 3 of them on. That may cause too much of a water pressure drop. So we wouldn't want that, so we only turn on 1 at a time. So I've turned this output on for 10 minutes. The rule's done. I take a look at my next rule below that, and my whenever statement is based upon output 17 state turning off. Then turn output 18 on for 10 minutes. As soon as 17 runs for 10 minutes, it turns off. The next rule fires here, turns 18 on. And then I have my last rule that says that whenever 18 turns off, turn 19 on for 10 minutes. This way they run 10 minutes on, and then 10 minutes on, then 10 minutes on without all three of them turning on at the same time. My next example, I'm using a zone, which happens to be an outdoor photo beam, zone 18, that whenever this zone becomes not secure and it's dark outside, based upon our sunrise and sunset settings, then I'm turning on a phantom output for 20 seconds. Output 21, it doesn't have to exist physically, it doesn't have to be an output expander. You can still use it within the rules as in this case, we're using it as a timer. So, and I'm going to check this timer. In my next rule, you'll see that whenever the other motion detector, the outdoor photo beam zone 19, becomes secure, I'm checking to see if that output is on. And then I'm making an announcement that output zone 18, I'm speaking zone 18. So what's happening here is let's say it's a driveway. You have a photo beam at the front of the driveway. Somebody drives in. Maybe they meant to drive in, maybe they didn't. But if they hit the second beam within 20 seconds, then it's going to enunciate. Now, where did it get the speak zone 18? Well, that's back under zone inputs. Let me cancel this. We'll go over that real quick. We look at zone 18. I have a 6-word phrase associated. I'm saying that visitor in the driveway. So back in the rules, scroll down. So that whenever zone 18 becomes not secure, go back up one. Okay, so whenever zone 19 becomes not secure and it's been within that 20-second period, then speak. It's kind of an example of cross zoning. I have another example. Whenever the outdoor beam zone 18 becomes not secure and outdoor beam zone 19 is not secure, then turn the front porch light on. So in this scenario, maybe the beams are close together, and if somebody parks in between them, then you get the light turning on. It's kind of a quick example on how to cross zone, how to check to see if one zone's been tripped and then another's tripped, or in case both zones are tripped. Rule number 13. I'm using a physical motion detector. This is a motion detector in the garage, so whenever garage motion zone 35 becomes not secure, then turn a physical output on. This is output 22. I'm turning it on for 10 minutes. Now, output 22 may be controlling a high voltage electrical contactor to control the fan, the exhaust fan in the garage. So every time motion is detected, it's going to keep output 22 on for 10 minutes. Now notice the restart timer if running. So if I'm in there working and then I've been still for 9 minutes and 50 seconds, if I walk and motion picks me up again, it's going to restart this timer back at 10. So each time I walk around, that timer gets reset over and over. So in this scenario, once I leave the garage and there's no motion for 10 minutes, then the output's going to turn off. I've created an example here that whenever the Smith home area 1 becomes disarmed, I'm turning on another physical output, output 20, I'm sorry, comes disarmed. I'm turning output 24 off. Maybe this is an LED, an exterior LED or something to give you a visual that the system is armed or disarmed. So whenever it becomes disarmed, turn the output off. And whenever the system becomes armed, and this is any mode, then turn the output on. I could have set this up so it was only armed away mode or vacation mode. Now perhaps you want an LED to blink. In this case, I've got whenever, every 2 seconds, so every 2 seconds it's going to check this rule, and Area 1, Smith Holmes burglar status is not ready, then it's going to turn the output on for 1 second. So every 2 seconds it's going to check the rule. If the system's not secure, it's going to turn that output on for 1 second. Or perhaps we want to flash a light if the system goes into alarm. Now, some manufacturers support a feature called alarm flash. It's a scene or a link that you can link your devices to, and if you turn on this scene, they will automatically flash for you. And then later on, you have to turn the scene off. But if you don't have that feature, then you can create a flashing light. What I have is whenever every 4 seconds and alarm in any area is active, any alarm, then I turn the front porch light on for 2 seconds. So every 4 seconds it checks the rule. If this is true, it'll turn the light on for 2 seconds. So we have 2 seconds on and 2 seconds off. My next rule, whenever sunset and the days of the week are Saturday and Sunday, then I have these multiple then statements to turn on specific lights for specific amounts of time, 2 hours, 3 hours, or 45 minutes. Now for Rule 19, the master bedroom closet is a non-alarm zone, so it's not going to cause any type of siren sounds or anything like that, but we can use that in automation to control the light as well. In this case, whenever the master bedroom closet, zone 14, becomes not secure, then turn the master bedroom closet light on for 5 minutes. So if you have someone that just likes to turn lights on and forgets to turn them off, this is a nice way to turn the light on, and then 5 minutes later it's going to turn off. Now, in order to get the light to turn back on again, they'd have to close the door and reopen it, or turn it on manually at the switch. You could also create the rule that whenever the zone becomes not secure, you could set up a free running counter to periodically check for that door to be open. If it is, then after a period of time, then you can have the light turn off automatically. So in Rule 20, we're looking at the driveway sensor, and what we've done is that whenever the driveway sensor becomes not secure and time of day is later than 6 p.m., then turn the front porch light on. Now, this take into consideration that whenever the time is later than, that goes up until midnight. So anywhere from 1 minute after midnight up until midnight, that'll be later than. So in this case, whenever the time is later than 6 p.m., so from 6 p.m. to midnight, this rule will activate. If you want to control it after that time period, you would need another rule that says whenever driveway sensor becomes not secure, and let's say the time is earlier than 6 a.m., that takes into consideration midnight to 6 a.m., then turn the light on. All right, for rules 21 through 23, once again, we're going to use counters again, and we're going to check to see if the garage door has been left open. So we have whenever the garage door, zone 3, becomes not secure, then I'm setting this counter, garage door open, counter 5 equal to 15. That rule's done. Then what I'm going to do, for seconds, and close the garage door, but they've armed the system, and the garage door is not secure, then I subtract 1 from the counter. So that whenever that counter changes to 0, so it's counted down every 4 seconds, it's checked to see if the garage door is open and if the system is armed, it's subtracting 1 from the counter. If that counter ever reaches 0, approximately 60 seconds later, if it ever reaches 0 and the garage door is open, then we're going to send an email message or a text message to this address listed in the email. So we get a notification when the garage door's been left open and the system is armed in the away mode. And setting up text message and email messages is covered under the ElkRP setup under the email tab. Our next rule, that whenever the living room motion detector becomes not secure and it's dark outside, we turn on several lights. So for occupancy sensing, when it's dark, notice I turned on a phantom output here. Let me revisit that one real quick. I turned a phantom output on here. Output 23 for 5 minutes. Once again, as people are walking around, we want to make sure that this light remains on. So each time somebody trips the motion, turns the output on for 5 minutes. And then, once motion has ended, there's no motion for a total of 5 minutes, then we automatically turn the light off. Automating thermostat based upon a specific time of day. So whenever the time is equal to 6 p.m., I've set the hall thermostat to cool mode. I've then set the desired temperature to 70 degrees. All right, the next set of rules, try to create a random look. The RP software doesn't have a random running counter, but you can define a counter and just have it turn on and add to and subtract from, and based upon the value. Now a counter can go from 1 up to 65,535, and then it rolls back over to 0. So what I've done through these rules is just I picked the front door, for instance, that whenever the front door becomes not secure, I'm adding a random value. In this case, it's 1357 to my counter. Whenever every 17 seconds, and the Smith home is armed to vacation mode, which is different from away mode, so you can use this differently in rules. And the days of the week are Saturday, Wednesday, and Friday, and the time is later than 5. And I said here between the time is earlier than 7 p.m. I didn't really need to include that because it's going to take midnight into consideration. Just want to throw that in there as an example. And the counter value is less than 12,999. Turn this light on for 1 hour and 13 minutes. The next time, every 17 minutes, and we're vacation, these parameters are met. If it's greater than 13,000 but less than 25,999, turn this output on, or light rather, for this amount of time. So I could have kept going on and on and on with the different counter values doing different things. It's kind of a roundabout way to get a random running counter. All right, looking at 2, now the M1 does have the capability of communicating to a central station. And if there is a emergency situation, a life critical situation, it's always better to let the central security station handle the call to dispatch. If there are certain people that need to be called besides police, fire, medical, you'd want to set that up with your central station that they get called if they do support that feature. If it's a non-mission critical, non-life emergency event and you want to be notified, the M1 has the capability of dialing a cell phone number or a next door neighbor and delivering a predefined voice message. And that's one of the telephone numbers. We've set up several in the system. I think if we revisit telephones, you can see that we have John Smith and Jane Smith. We have Tommy. We have little Sally. We even have the next door neighbor listed here. So let's look again back at our rules on who we're calling. Scroll down. Yeah. All right, so let's look at this rule, for instance. Whenever any burglar alarm, any area turns on, then it's going to dial John's number. This is after it's already called Central Station. Even though in the list you may have noticed Central Station was number telephone 6, it's going to call Central Station first, and it's going to deliver the alarm condition to them. Then it's going to call John, and it's going to say the burglar message, VM300. I would go ahead and call everyone within the one rule. I would, just so that the M1's doing what it's supposed to. It's calling, it's waiting, you know, everyone's going to get a phone call. Some people want to call, and if the call is acknowledged, then stop the calls. You can do that, and what we've done is use a call sequence scenario. And when the alarm turns on, we dial John, we speak the message. We're turning on a phantom output for 3 minutes. Okay. When output 15 turns off and the phone line is off hook, meaning the system is still trying to call, then I turn the call sequence on for 1 minute. Again, I'm going to check that output, that whenever output 15 is turned off and phone line is not seized, meaning the phone is on hook, and the call sequence counter 2 is equal to 0, and the burglar alarm status is still active, meaning John didn't acknowledge or didn't log back into the system and cancel the alarm, then it's going to call Tommy, and then it's going to set output 16 on for 3 minutes. And the line is seized, meaning it's still trying to call for 1 minute. When the call sequence turns off and the phone is on hook, meaning the phone line is not seized, and the sequence is equal to 0 and active, burglar alarm is still active, we're going to dial the next door neighbor. Now, what causes the alarm counter to equal 0? If we go back up, we'll see that whenever central station kiss-off occurs, then set the counter equal to 1. So when central station acknowledges the call, the counter gets equal to 1. If it's going to call and the call doesn't get acknowledged by the recipient from the voice dial, it's going to log a failed to communicate. That failed to communicate is going to stay on the keypad until the call is acknowledged through this call sequence here. But once again, if it is a critical application, I'd always consider having the central station make the calls to the individuals on the list. All right, so we have a rule to automate our water shutoff valve, our ELK SWV, so that whenever any water alarm, any area turns on, we're going to turn output 3 on. That's going to send voltage to the water shutoff valve. It's going to shut the water off to the whole house. Now later on, when we get home and we've taken care of the issue which caused the leak, we want to turn the water back on. So whenever the F5 key on any keypad activates and alarm memory has been reset, then turn the output off, which will send voltage to the other leg of the water shutoff valve and cause it to open. Now, had this not been a true statement, let's say the system was still in water alarm, it was still active, the alarm memory was still present, we wouldn't want to turn the water back on in case the issue hadn't been corrected. So that's the reasoning for the conditioning and statement. You could have left this out and just whenever the F5 key is pressed, then turn output 3 off and restore water. Hopefully the leak got repaired. Right, so whenever master bedroom zone 6 becomes not secure, I'm setting a counter again to 120. I'm checking that counter every second, and if the master bedroom window is still open, I subtract 1 from counter 5. If that counter ever reaches 0, then I'm going to set the master bedroom thermostat to off. So if somebody likes to open the window or a door and leave it open with the air conditioner running, we now have a way to say, okay, that zone's been open too long. Let's turn the AC or the heat off or whatever to conserve energy. We can automate our water heater using an ELK 9200 and an appliance module from one of these supported lighting control technologies and manufacturers. And we can have our rule that whenever the system becomes disarmed, we can turn the water heater on. Whenever the system is armed to the away mode, we can have the water heater turn off. You can also have a time of day schedule set up so that you know that for the most part you're going to need that water heater on between the hours of say 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. After 9 a.m. you can turn it off until 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon, and then have again turn off at say 10 o'clock at night. That way your water heater is only running for a fraction of the time that it normally would be. All right, Rule 45 and 46 we kind of covered earlier. This is based upon the burglar status. We're turning on an LED. Let's get into some fun things that you can do with custom text messages. Let's say, for instance, every 30 seconds in the month to your family member. That way you always make sure you don't forget her birthday or her anniversary. The M1, remember when you can't. Task is activated. Then announce the welcome home task. Disarm area 5, which happened to be the man cave. And then I set the audio source in the man cave and the receiver to audio source 1. I have another task set up that whenever school day task 4 is activated, then announce the name, say the time, turning on some lights. This here is where earlier we created the name for the task. At this point, this is where we're telling the task what to do. So I now have my welcome home and my school day task defined. Now I'm going to activate one of those. So I'm going to say that whenever the time is 6:30 a.m. and days of the week are Monday through Friday, and the month is later than July, which goes from July to December, then activate school day task. So every day at this time at 6:30, it's going to start speaking. It's going to turn on some lights. It's going to tell them it's school day. It's time to get up. And once again, it's 6:30, Monday through Friday, and it's earlier than June. Same thing, activate the school day task. If you need a reminder when it's trash day, every 60 seconds, and the day of the week is Monday, then display trash day on the keypad for 10 seconds. So that message will pop up there for 10 seconds and then turn off. How would you like to be notified when individuals are arming and disarming your home? We can do that as well. So we can send John an email when the pool guy is here. So whenever pool house area 3 state becomes disarmed and last user was the pool guy, user 6, then send email message number 7 or text message to John. Once again, the M1, remember when you can. So if we need a reminder to change our HVAC filters, we can have whenever, every 23 hours and 59 days, I'm adding one to this counter, counter 6. And I'm saying that whenever that counter changes to 30, so basically every 30 days, I then send an email message to the maintenance guy, and I set that counter back to 0. Would you like to be notified when certain zones open up? Let's say, for instance, whenever Sally's window, zone 12, becomes not secure and the time of day is later than 10, which goes from 10 to midnight, then send Dad a text message, then turn the sprinklers on under little Sally's window for 20 minutes. And everybody knows what Dad stands for, right? Dad's Against Daughters Dating, aka John Smith. And let's say that the window opens and it's earlier than 6 a.m. Once again, we're going to turn that sprinkler on. We're going to send Dad a text message. So I have whenever 30 seconds I want to display the temperature of the M1 zone temperature sensor. Now this can be used indoors. It can be used outdoors if you're using the M1 ZTSR with the 7-foot remote probe. The probe's actually weatherproof. It's not waterproof, but it's weatherproof, and it's intended for harsher environments, so you can actually have the probe in a freezer, for instance, or a little harsher environment than just regular outdoors, and it can monitor the temperature. And in this case, we're monitoring the outdoor temperature, and every 30 seconds we're going to display that temperature value on the keypads in area 1. Let's say we're monitoring a keypad, the M1KP, we can do that as well. We can say that whenever, every 15 minutes, temperature doesn't change that rapidly normally, so a time occurrence every 15 minutes should be sufficient. And the zone temperature on zone 15 is greater than 90, and the phantom output, I'll explain that, and phantom output 27 is off, then send this email message to John telling him it's too hot, and we're turning the output on for 1 hour. Now, why do we want to turn the output on for 1 hour? Okay, well, every 15 minutes it's going to check this rule. And if the temperature is greater than 90 and we did not have the and statement, it's going to send that message. Every 15 minutes and it's above 90 degrees, he's going to get a text message. That may be a bit too much. I mean, it's filling up his inbox and whatever. He's just not happy. So we turn the output on for 1 hour. So the rule's still going to come this far and say every 15 minutes, and the temperature may still be higher than 90 degrees, but if the output is on, it's not going to send the text message. So in this scenario, if the temperature is above 90, he's only going to get a message once an hour. Not going to set that for every 4 hours, so you'd only get the message once every 4 hours. And the same is true if it's too cold, same thing. Turn on the same phantom output for 1 hour, and then he gets the message that, yeah, it's too cold around at the zone temperature sensor. All right, well, that pretty much goes through the examples that I have at this time. Did we have any examples that we may have wanted to go over that I didn't include there, Jonathan?
An access control rule.
An access control rule, okay. Let's jump back up to users real quick. Let's take a look at our users. And Okay, we have the maintenance helper. Let's do something with the maintenance helper. So let's say that, for instance, let's click a new rule, and we'll say, for instance, whenever. Let's go under security. Let's go under access. Whenever access. Let's do a specific keypad because I believe we wanted to do the maintenance building. So whenever access on a specific keypad, okay, and last user was the maintenance guy. Let's say, for instance, he has a key fob instead of a 4-digit code. He's kind of he doesn't remember his 4-digit code too well. So we've given him a prox card. And we have a prox reader attached to the back of the keypad there in the maintenance building. All right. So all he has to do is walk up and swipe his card. So say whenever access maintenance building is triggered and last user was the maintenance guy, then we want to automatically disarm. If I remember right, I think that was area 4. So let's say we're going to disarm area 4 immediately. That's an example of an access control. Let's check areas just to make sure that, yep, that was area 4. All right, so this rule worked 24/7. Whenever access maintenance building, that means he walks up, he swipes his card, and last user was the maintenance guy, because he can't remember his 4-digit code, then disarm the system. Now let's say, for instance, he doesn't need 24/7. So let's edit that rule to say, and time is relative to a specific time of the day. We're going to say that it is later than 6 a.m., okay? And we'll say, and time is earlier than 5 p.m. Now our rule is whenever, oh, I edited the wrong rule. Let's see. Go back down to my maintenance guy. Sorry about that. Edit. All right. And time is later than 6 a.m. and time is earlier than 6 p.m. So now he only has the ability to disarm the system during this time period. And let's say we can go ahead and add another then statement that we can control an output. And I believe I had an output assigned to the door lock for that garage. Well, we'll say we'll turn output 28 on for a duration of 10 seconds to give him plenty of time to open the door. So there's an example of an access control rule based upon a key fob or a prox card.
Got some questions regarding logs of the M1.
Okay.
Yeah, like if the M1 sends an email, will it log it in the system? And also, is there different ways we can get the log out of the system?
Okay. The M1 has a 512 event log, and that's primarily reserved for the security aspects of the system, the arming, the disarms, the troubles, the alarms, things of that nature. It will not log when the email is sent. It doesn't log when outputs turn on or turn off, or when lights turn on or turn off. The log is primarily for the security aspects. The one thing that does get logged from a rule is when it does a voice dial. So if I have it calling the next door neighbor, when that rule activates, it'll log that in the log. The way to retrieve the log, you can use the ElkRP software, and if you're connected to the system, you can click log on the toolbar. You can retrieve the entire log and print it, or you can save it to a file. Also, from M1 to go, you can retrieve the log and once again print or save to a file.
Thank you. Another question we got in, can you have multiple things connected to the M1 at the same time?
Okay, yeah, I think I understand the question. When ElkRP connects, all other connections, M1 to go, the third-party smartphone apps, other automation systems, those connections are suspended while RP is connected. But if RP is not connected to the system, you can have 30 other connections. You can have the M1 to go, the Keypad, M1 touch, the touch screens. You could have 30 of those connected at one time.
Another question we've got, the Leviton primary controller is the Visa RF installer tool that is used to update the interface. Is there any other controller that you can use
Uh,
for Z-Wave?
For Z-Wave, well, you're going to need our M1X SLZW, their Z-Wave interface, and that talks to the Leviton Visia RF lighting interface. And in order to configure that, I would recommend using the Leviton installer software and their USB sticks. If you get an opportunity, download the M1XSLZW installation manual, and there's good information on the necessary equipment, software, steps needed, as well as the features and integration between the two systems.
Is there, if you use an F1 key to toggle mode to run an output, is there a way to get feedback to the E keypad to know what the state of the output is?
Good question. I think eKeypad gets updated with the output status, but I'm not 100% sure. That's not our app. So I know M1 to go gets updated when an output turns on. I'm assuming eKeypad would as well, but that'd be a good question for that developer.
Okay.
All right, folks. Well, we certainly do appreciate it. We have run out of time today, so there concludes our advanced rule writing webinar. We certainly do appreciate your time and attendance today, and we'll look forward to the next webinar.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Jonathan.